Live Super Show. Fantastic guest today, John Sorensen, Chief Operating Officer of Catholic Answers. And I say fantastic guest because he is my boss. He's all of our boss.
You have to say it, right?
So if I don't say that, what kind of a person am I? I think I'm an idiot. Also, Emily Dinenny joining us. I don't know if I'm not sure about tech. We had a little technical trouble, so we're working on getting Emily on. John, thanks for being here.
I love it, man.
I love it too. I'm gonna start having a contest here pretty soon to name the Catholic Answers Live Super Show. I just don't think Super Show can last as a name. I think we're gonna have to come up with something else.
I don't know, man. The longer it sticks around, the more cool it becomes.
Does it become cooler over time?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we might have to change it. I don't know. John, you wrote a really good article, and I shouldn't have this sound of surprise in my voice when I say that. Like, John, I'm shocked. You wrote a really good article where you responded to Sneeko. And first of all, let me just ask you this. Who do you think you are to respond to world famous YouTubers? Where does little John Sorensen get off responding to world famous YouTubers?
You know what's funny about that is I was reading I didn't know that they had posted this today. I just found out a little while ago. But I was looking at the Facebook comments under it, and somebody was like, "Oh wow, somebody at Catholic Answers knows who Sneeko is," and I was kind of laughing on the inside because I'm like, I actually have no idea who this guy even is.
Really?
Yeah, somebody sent me the video. Thomas Graff sent me the video.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about it. We meet once a week to talk about what we're going to write about on Catholic.com. And they were like, "Do you want to respond to this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I didn't want to do a whole lot of homework on who Sneeko is.
So you just watched the video.
The guy's name is Sneeko, for crying out loud. I don't care if he's got a bazillion followers. His name's Sneeko.
You know what? His mother wanted to name him Sneeko?
I think I think he has a real name. I think Sneeko is kind of like,
Do we have Emily? Do we have Emily yet? Can I hear Emily or not?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Testing.
Yes.
Emily, who is Sneeko?
Tell us about Sneeko. You're of the proper age.
I don't know.
You don't know Sneeko?
I've never heard of him until I read the article.
Am I the only cool person here? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I have no idea who Sneeko is. I mean, I do now because I read John's article. But a response to Sneeko's take on Easter. There are people that are super famous that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it was always that way.
No,
I feel like
so.
Back in the 70s, there was like 8 famous people, and everybody knew them.
Well,
now, I went all the way to New Zealand, and this little kid came up to me after the talk, little maybe 10 or 11 years old. He goes, "Are you from San Diego?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, I thought he was going to ask me about the talk or something. He goes, "Do you know Mr. Beast?" I never even heard of Mr. Beast.
Oh, yeah.
This was, I've heard of him now, but
Right.
This was a couple years ago. I never heard of Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
I was like, "No, who's Mr. Beast?" He goes, "He lives in San Diego where you live." And I was like, "He hasn't been at any of the meetings. I don't know him."
Yeah.
Or maybe he doesn't go by Mr. Beast. But anyways, people are very famous. And Sneeko is very, very famous.
Right, yeah.
And you had the audacity to think that you have the right to correct a famous person.
That's right.
What's wrong with you?
There's lots of things wrong with me, but I was more concerned about the people who see the kind of arguments that he's making against Christmas and Easter. And I thought, well, gosh, it's funny because people on the internet will say, "Why are you responding to this?" And it's like, well, it's because there are a lot of people who actually believe these kinds of things, Not just people like Sneeko. I was looking at a lot of my evangelical friends who won't call it Easter. They refuse to call it Easter. They call it Reformation Day or whatever. And I'm like, oh, man.
Wait, Reformation Day?
Or not Reformation.
Halloween.
Sorry, Resurrection Day. Sorry.
Oh, Resurrection Day.
Sorry, I botched that. Yeah.
No, yeah, okay. Resurrection. Yeah, my wife ran into that one day. She said Happy Easter to a woman who was wearing a cross one day, and the woman was like, "I don't celebrate Easter."
Right.
I think my wife, being the good Christian woman she is, said, "I don't care what you do."
Well, right. It's because people hear arguments like this, and they just thought, and rather than doing any homework, they just.
Well, it's like that time I'm driving in the car. Emily, this happened to me, and I'm listening to Little Steven. You know Little Steven? He used to have that Little Steven's radio show where he played really cool music. And he starts talking about Halloween, how it's the Catholic Church stole Halloween and it's really Samhain. And I'm like, "Little Steven, back to the music, dude. You don't know anything about this." He just is repeating some article he read somewhere as if I got the insight into Halloween. All wrong.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did Sneeko get wrong? What did he say about Easter that you didn't like?
Well, I mean, he said the usual things that people will say that Easter was borrowed from pagan religions. I mean, he's saying it's a Roman pagan religion, but I mean, you don't have bunnies and Easter or anything. There's no record of that. So the issue with Easter is the argument usually is made that like it has pagan origins, but the only time that this is ever mentioned, and I didn't write about it in this article, but I've written on these things a bazillion times. That's why they asked me to write this one. But the whole Easter Eostre, where the name of the month comes from,
a Venerable Bede, right?
Venerable Bede, Saint Bede now, right? Is he a saint now? I think he's a saint.
But
now.
he's so traditionally called the Venerable Bede.
Right, I know it's hard to not call him that. But anyway, he wrote on that, but I think he was mistaken because the only place you ever find this the idea that there was some Eostre goddess is in his writing and nowhere else.
Oh, so
literally nowhere else.
He made a kind of linguistic connection
he says he heard it from somebody, and then he repeats it in his writing.
Well, that's called scholarship. You hear something, and then you just write it down, and that's called scholarship.
Yeah, but I think Bede, for God bless him, obviously, but I think he might have been wrong on that.
Yeah, but it persists through the centuries then.
Right.
Okay, so let me just ask Emily a quick question.
Sure.
And then I'm going to come back to you. Emily, you're Catholic now.
Correct.
So did you go to Catholic Mass for Easter?
I did.
And lining the walls, just give me a number, a ballpark number, lining the walls and the walkways of the Catholic Church that you went to. How many bunnies and eggs did you see? Was it a huge number, or just give me a general ballpark number of the bunnies and eggs inside of a Catholic church on Easter?
Approximately 0.
Approximately. Okay, so you don't know for sure, but approximately 0. And you could probably ask 100 people that went to 100 different Catholic churches, and there would be 0 bunnies and eggs. So this is what bothers me, John, is like, it's a pagan holiday. The eggs and the bunnies come from, and it was like, we don't have eggs and bunnies.
Right.
That's not part of how we celebrate this.
Right.
At people's homes, they might.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the Christian celebration of Easter.
Right. But even in people's homes, it doesn't have anything to do with the pagan. So,
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
When they celebrate at home, it just has nothing to do with it. It's these. But the reason I wrote the article is I wanted to take a slightly different tack than this one and talk about the cult, how Christianity has enacted, or how it's worked with other cultures that it encounters over the last 2,000 years, right? Like even if those things were true, everything that he said, that these were all based on they were once pagan celebrations that we've since baptized or whatever.
Yeah.
Still, so what?
That's a wonderful point, and I like that because you're not just. This is not an anti-Sneeko attack.
No,
I think we've seen far too much anti-Sneekoism.
I don't. Yeah,
we don't need any more of that.
Well, I don't know anything about the guy. Apparently, he says a lot of goofy things, but I don't know anything about him. Not enough to. I don't
either.
Yeah.
I don't either. But I do like your tack, which is. You're not going after answering every specific accusation of this is pagan, this is pagan. Your tack is more like, so what if it was pagan? Why would that be a problem?
Right.
Like what's wrong with and you rooted in you rooted in your article in the fact that this is always that the Catholic Church has not understood the faith that comes to us in Jesus Christ to be anti-culture or like to destroy culture and replace culture.
Right.
It's what's the way we think?
It's to enhance it. It's to bring there are some things that are in cultural practices that you may have to throw out because they're just so antithetical to Christian belief that like it's just not like child sacrifice.
Right, out. That's out.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, right.
Yes.
But then there are these sort of like things like, let's say that there was some pagan cult that celebrated some deity with painted eggs, and then Christians said, you know what, we're gonna do that too, but we're gonna do it for Jesus. Like, what's the problem? They're doing it for Jesus. They're not doing it for the pagan god. So who cares?
What's analogous to that to me is Christians have candles. At a wedding, for example.
Right.
Pagans use candles way before Christians.
Right.
So does that mean you can never have candles at your wedding?
Right.
Like that. So I see what you're saying is that there's a way of thinking of Christianity that it just totally hates culture.
Right.
And we have to be totally different in every way.
Yeah.
That is not the Catholic way of thinking.
Or
about
like
culture.
we're the Borg, and we just make everybody assimilate into these like automatons and robots and stuff. And no,
it's not a Borg religion.
No. Actually, I mean, I love Catholicism. Fantastic. It's not going like even now. You go to like different places in the world where they celebrate Mass or something related to it. Like I went to, my grandfather was a Catholic missionary in Malawi, Africa. So I went. My wife and I went with my mom and dad to Malawi. I don't know. It was probably like 6 or 7 years ago now to see the place where my grandfather was a doctor. And we got invited to a wedding out there, and the wedding reception was totally different than what you would see here. Like totally different, but awesome. You know what I mean? It was just different cultural expression.
Yeah.
Same thing behind it.
But still Christian.
But yeah, very Christian.
Right.
But they had all kinds of different customs and culture and everything.
Right.
And the Catholic Church isn't coming in here and saying every wedding reception needs to be exactly the same, or you know what I mean? It's not the point.
Yes. Right. Do you think that Sneeko is mad that we stole this? In his view, that would be stealing. Or do you think he's trying to say to Christians, you're so dumb you don't even know where your religion comes from?
I don't really know because the video clip is not long enough for me to pull that kind of...
Yeah, I gotcha.
You know, all I can say is from the clip that I saw, he's basically saying like, why would Jesus want to be remembered like this, based on these pagan rituals?
Well, what if I said this to you? Because I think he did say something like this in the video. I'm probably twisting it up a little bit. And Emily, you can jump in if you want. I'm trying to keep you out. It's just that he wrote an article about
you're
Sneeko,
good.
a super giant famous internet person. He basically started a war with him. We're at war with Sneeko now because of him.
Sneeko wars.
The Sneeko wars of 2026.
I did some research while you guys were chatting about Sneeko.
Wait, you weren't hanging on every word? What are you talking about?
Let's just say that Sneeko got famous from something that is a little scandalous.
Oh, it is? Oh, well, we didn't know. Sorry. We didn't know
No,
about
but no, it's kind of it's like half serious but half funny. It's not anything like crazy, but I was like investigating like who is this person, and he has some some past.
Well, okay, so when Sneeko then says, look, neither Easter nor Christmas is in the Bible. What do you say to that?
I say, so what? I mean, honestly, so what? There's lots of, I mean, that gets down to the whole sola scriptura argument, which I just reject outright because there's just nothing in the Bible that says that all...
Yeah, sola scriptura is wrong. That's the first thing you might say to Sneeko is maybe your understanding of Christianity is warped by the fact that you only know one kind of Christianity. You don't know traditional Christianity, Orthodox and Catholic Christianity.
Amen. Yeah.
But like, I didn't understand when he's saying Christmas and Easter is not in the Bible. The birth of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus are both in the Bible. He must mean the dates or the...
Right. He's saying like the dates and the way we go about celebrating it. I mean, at the very beginning of the video, he kind of says, well, it's good for like hanging out with your family and this and that. But
which, by the way, Jesus is in favor of.
Right.
I
but
believe.
we really shouldn't be. I don't know. It just doesn't really, I don't know. I mean, the main thing I wanted to respond to, not because I care about who Sneeko is or whatever, but oftentimes like, and I mean, I'm sure people who are regulars at Catholic.com will know this, is like we typically use something something going on in media as a sort of a jumping off point to be able to tell people about a Catholic perspective on this.
Yeah.
Right. And so Sneeko is just a good opportunity to be able to respond to something that actually is popular and said by a lot of people. Like a lot of people, like even our some of our evangelical brothers and sisters who won't celebrate Easter. They do it because they think that it's based on a pagan ritual.
So it's misleading Christians too.
Yeah.
It's not just keeping people out of the Christian church or away from Jesus. It's misleading Christians about your own life.
Right.
I can't celebrate Easter because the apostles never said to in the Bible.
Right. And it was celebrated by those evil, pre-Christian pagans, which actually is totally bogus too, especially Christmas.
I have to say, I love your mythicism stuff that you do and all this, like you've done a lot of this kind of stuff. And there is, the extreme form of this is not what Sneeko is doing, where he's just trying to say, look, your holidays are just pagan holidays. You know, na 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 na.
Yeah.
But the extreme form of it is Jesus isn't a real person. He's really an amalgam of
older pagan myths.
Persephone and Osiris or something. You know, like Jesus is like Persephone in what way?
Yeah.
But people say that.
Well, you know, I started writing about it years ago because I had gone. Well, first of all, I believed those things myself. Early on,
Before you were a Christian.
Before I was Christian, yeah. So when I was an atheist, I actually believed Jesus was a made-up character based on old pagan myths, right?
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So when I became Catholic and then I started working here, I saw that like there weren't very many Catholics answering that question. And when I would write about it, the regular response that I would get online was, "Why are you bothering with this? No academic, takes these kinds of arguments seriously."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to speak to academics.
Right.
I get that they don't, but I went to my buddy Mike and I drove out to L.A. one time, this is years ago, to see a concert at a little club in L.A. And we'd been in the car forever, and so I went inside to see if I could use the restroom. And the lady was in there talking to the guitar player from one of the bands, and he's telling her, I just happened to overhear the conversation, and he's telling her, oh yeah, Jesus is made up and blah blah blah, so, and he's based off of Horus, right?
Oh yeah, Horus, right.
Horus, the Egyptian god. So I used the restroom. I came back out and I stopped to thank the lady for letting me go in because this was before the show, before they were letting people in, and I said. I'm like, hey, I overheard the conversation you were having, and it just so happens that literally like 2 months ago, I wrote an article about this for the company that I work for. It's a Catholic organization, and everything that guy told you was total bunk. And I said, and I handed her my card, and I said, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to send you the link to it. And she actually emailed me, and I sent her a link. It was the first one I wrote. It was called Horus Manure.
That's what it was fun to work at Catholic Answers in those days.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's the thing. And then and I've written probably 50 articles on this since then. And not that long ago, I think Bishop Barron posted a survey that had been done by the Church of England.
Yeah.
50% of respondents, I think, said they believed Jesus was a made-up character.
That is so nuts.
So it doesn't matter what the academics believe. It's like, what do the people on the street believe? Because there's a gulf there sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange because if you get if you talk to a person like Bart Ehrman, who probably agrees with us on almost nothing, but he actually knows some history.
Yeah.
He'll go, well, of course Jesus existed.
Yeah.
Of course Jesus is a person of the first century. That we have tremendous evidence that he's, I guess what I'm saying is we don't have to appeal to only Christian scholars or something.
Right.
Go to any secular historian of the first century and say, was Jesus a real person? They'd go, well, most of them will say, well, if he's not, then we don't know anything about the first century.
Right.
Because,
right.
like, who else do you have more testimony
Right.
about?
What did St. Paul say? If Christ is not risen, then our faith is in vain.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
It's like, so that's pretty pivotal. If he wasn't a real dude, then everything that we believe and everything that we practice is for no reason at all.
Do you hear this stuff, Emily, because I know you're the super popular Fox News guest and all that stuff, but...
Stop it. Yeah. I mean, okay, so I just want to interject really quickly about Sneeko specifically. On like reading John's article, I thought, oh, he's like one of those, kind of maybe like a crazy Protestant who's more extreme, who's just like the people that you mentioned who are like, I celebrate Resurrection Day, not Easter. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if this man is Christian. No. He has to be Muslim.
He's Muslim.
Because I'm looking at he's Muslim. Yeah, okay.
He converted to Islam.
But he tweeted, Christ is king.
Yeah.
He was a ex-Christian, now Muslim convert. Is that correct?
I don't know, but
I knew that he was Muslim because I did read enough about him today to know that. But the rest, I really didn't familiarize myself with his biography.
You're fine. I mean, but my
Pinto
initial
says
thought
he's a
after
fake
that
Muslim.
is
Pino with Pio says he's a fake Muslim.
Yeah.
We're looking at the screen there. Sorry, Emily, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was gonna say, I mean, anytime a Muslim is going to tell us about what true history is, I disregard it 90% of the time, especially when they're trying to talk about the Christian history, because they're so misguided about it. I mean, how, like, why are we talking about Easter and Christmas? Let's talk about the person of Christ himself and like
Amen.
what you get wrong about him. You know, that's more important, and that's also, there's just more historical data on those points versus the origin of Christmas and Easter. But I 100% agree with you, John. It doesn't matter what the origins are.
Right.
I mean, Christ came to redeem all things, and so anything could be redeemed and be made for Christ, and be made for the better.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, but what is it in us that we just love to have secret knowledge, you know? Like I know what really happened is that this is the Horus myth retold, and Jesus is just like Horus, or just pick an. Why do we not go? Well, the most obvious answer to why historical people who we know were historical people testified to a historical faith. Like, I don't have to believe that he's God, but like there's tremendous historical evidence, including St. Paul, who was his opponent and describes, you know, his own Christian conversion, not somebody else, not a witness telling another witness who passed it along. Like the guy that it actually happened to tells us his own story and says he became a believer in this man, Jesus, within a few years of his death. Why do we prefer this really fanciful, well, it's just a retelling of the Horus myth, to going, well, no, he's obviously a historical guy. What is it in us that we...
You're on crack, dude. St. Paul was a space ghost. He wasn't a real person either.
All right,
No, you see, like
My bad. I didn't know.
the lengths you have to go. At least Bart Ehrman's position is honest. He says, "Yeah, Jesus was a real guy, but I'm skeptical of the miracle claims and the resurrection."
Well, that makes sense to me. You're not a believer,
Right.
so the opposite of being a believer is being a skeptic.
Right.
But admitting that Jesus is a first century man from the Galilee who had a following and became a publicly known figure and was executed, like admitting the basic historical facts of his life has nothing to do with faith.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's
Like
true.
you don't need to have faith to know it's pretty clear Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem.
Right. I
Like
mean,
that.
it's pretty-
That's a basic historical fact.
Yeah.
And the I don't know.
I recommend Christians read. Actually, I mean, you have to read it with kind of a with eyes wide open. But Bart Ehrman's book on it actually is great. Did Jesus Exist? I think it's called.
Oh, he wrote a book about that?
Yeah, when Jimmy debated him, he got me. He got Bart to sign a copy of the book for me. I have it in my office. I also have a signed copy of The Historicity of Jesus by Richard Carrier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Trent met him. They debated a long time ago, and that guy was tripping out because I walked up to him and I'm wearing a T-shirt that said Catholic on the front of it, and I'm trying to buy a copy of his book and get him to sign it. He's like, "Why do you want me to sign this?" I've been following your goofy stuff for years, man.
Your goofy stuff.
I said that to him. But it's but also, I mean, these guys, I think that, they reflect the views of a lot of people, and it's a good thing for us to answer those, to answer these claims.
Well, I have started doing a thing where I take my own arguments or arguments that we make here at Catholic Answers, and I cut and paste them into ChatGPT, and I say, if maybe it's about a Protestant claim, and I say, if I were a Protestant minister, what's the strongest argument I could make against this? Mm-hmm. And a ChatGPT is good enough that you go, wow, that really is a good strong argument.
Yeah.
Like and I feel like maybe Sneeko, when he says these things, just run the facts through ChatGPT and say, what's the argument against this?
Right.
Because you can't just go, I heard this on the internet and you Christians are so dumb you don't even use the internet. No, we're not dumb. Like, we've been here for 2,000 years with this thing. We've thought this through. You might not come to the same conclusion that we come to,
right?
But don't go on there and make a fool of yourself by acting like we're dumb.
Yeah.
like, oh, you're dumb because you believe Easter. Well, no, it's not dumb.
No.
And go to a Christian church and look inside and see how many bunnies and eggs you see at Easter. You will see 0.
Well, right. And people are quick to point out, too, that Easter is only called Easter in some English-speaking Western countries. Everywhere else, it's Pascha or Pasch or,
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. Only in English,
Right.
Or Germanic languages.
Yeah,
maybe.
but even then, it's like, who cares? It's just that they named it after the name of the month,
For some reason, Mexicans say Felices Pascuas,
Yeah.
which means happy Easters. I don't know why they say it plural. Edgar's going, no, they don't. You're not from Mexico. You are from NorCal. You don't know what they say. No, just this morning, a Mexican said to me, Felices Pascuas.
That one?
Yes, that one. And let me ask you, who speaks Spanish better?
She does, definitely.
She definitely does. So don't
Diana?
tell me. Yeah. So maybe Mexicans in NorCal say Feliz Pascua.
Yeah.
All
Quick,
right.
so somebody posted real quick, is it okay for Catholics to celebrate Lunar Chinese New Year? I'm not familiar with the particulars of that, but I think if it's not a...
If you're Chinese, you probably should.
Well, I mean, if it's the New
everybody else
Year,
is.
like probably Chinese
Or is that a
Catholics-
religious celebration?
I don't know.
Like if it...
If
Is
you're
it
just celebrating the New Year, based on like the lunar calendar, I don't see the problem.
And then Big Stack is like yelling at me, you don't know Sneeko, Sai. Okay. All right. Fair enough, Big Stack.
I love Big Stack.
Me too. I don't think he's yelling at me, but I'm not exactly sure what he's referring to. Is it okay for Catholics to celebrate the lunar Chinese New Year? What do you think, Emily? Do you agree with John?
I just don't know enough about it to give an opinion, and I don't want to say something incorrect.
I mean, if the traditional way of celebrating it is to sacrifice a goat to Satan, then no.
Right.
But as far as we know, it's just firecrackers and delicious food. Then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Dawa guys are an interesting crowd. I don't know what that means. I'm trying to be friendly with the people online, but they're so cryptic today.
I like your name though.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Hi, Hallelujah.
Oh, then Mark.
247,
Look at Mark
24/7.
Morvan. He's trying to like make friends with Big Stack because they're all scared of Big Stack. He's like,
Exactly.
we love Big Stack, and then M1214. We love Big Stack. Hand clap. Yeah, no way, Sai. I would never yell at you. Sorry, I had a feeling you did not. But I think I read that comment out of context. So
There you go.
all right, Emily. Felices Pascuas. To you.
Happy Easter. Thank you.
Happy Easters. Have you heard this? That a lot of... What, you're leaving me?
I'm leaving you, dude. I just wanted to talk about how...
No, he's leaving. He's going out. He's going to ask Diana.
Oh, is he?
Diana Jacqueline.
Oh, he's going to find out. Okay,
ask
so you
her.
guys want me to stick around? Okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
We definitely...
Hey, I'm
stay
down, man.
there. The
All right.
longer you stay, the less I have to deal with Edgar today.
Okay.
All right.
I'm down.
Okay, good. Have you heard, Emily, that lots and lots of people are coming into the Catholic Church?
I have.
Do you believe it or do you not believe it?
I listened to Joe Heschmeyer's podcast on this.
so now you
and
don't
I'd
believe
recommend
it.
everybody listening. So I don't know. It's not that I don't believe it. I think I agree with Joe that we should take the, let's wait on this instead of jumping to conclusions, because I think it can be harmful for people to it's all over the news right now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if next year we see it slowing down potentially, or maybe staying at the same rate, then people can look at that and say like, oh yeah, it was just a phase. It was just a trend. And it almost looks worse than if we just were a little bit more hesitant to call it out in the first place. So I'm on the side of let's wait, but I am encouraged. I do see the amount of conversions happening in my diocese in Charlotte, but also, on social media, it's great to see so many young people openly talking about their faith.
Yeah.
Obviously that's anecdotal, but I still just see a lot of people, even if, they're still just being very vocal about their faith. And I think that's something that we haven't really seen before. So I'm very encouraged with that.
Yeah. It's people I hear some people complain about this proliferation of Catholic YouTubers, but I love it. I think it's great. The more the merrier, bring it on.
That's
I
what
wish there was 10 times more.
Me too.
Fill YouTube with that stuff. It's better than some of the garbage that's on there.
It's way better, and I think I have heard it alleged that part of what protected, let's say, certain really fundamentalist Protestant ministers from Catholicism was the fact that you had to go to a library and check out a book and read a Catholic book if you really. But now all you got to do is like that minister goes, they worship statues, and you go, oh, let me check that on YouTube. There's 1,000 videos of Catholics going, we don't worship statues anymore. No, that not anymore.
Exactly.
I'm only kidding. And an explanation of how we do use statues in our prayer life and in our liturgical life and in our artistic life, but that none of this has to do with worshiping a statue.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of true in a way. Like the answers are easier to get if you want them.
Oh yeah.
If you don't want them, then it doesn't matter.
And this is a pretty relatively recent development. I mean, maybe to younger people, 20 years doesn't sound like a long time, but just 20 years ago or so, when I was coming into the Catholic faith, to find good Catholic books, I had to drive like almost an hour.
Yeah.
There was a little Catholic bookstore like far away, and I knew where it was, so I would drive all the way out
But you
there.
lived in a cave in the mountains, though, didn't you?
Well, yeah, but even if I lived at the bottom of the mountain, I still would have to drive 45 minutes at least, to get to the Catholic bookstore. And even then, like I had no way of knowing like which books are good or which are not. I kind of knew I met the store owner.
Right, you got to
and
figure
he
it
would
all
tell
out on
me,
your own.
and these days it's a lot easier to find good Catholic content because Catholics have gotten a lot better at using media to amplify the message, and that's why I say like the more the merrier. Bring it on.
Yeah. Well, I've got some cold hard numbers for you from the Pillar, and I'll give the author's name in a second, but I don't want to lose this graphic that I have in front of me because once I lose it, I probably can't find it again. All right, here's some cold hard numbers. Oh, you doubting Thomasina. 90,000 people received into the Catholic Church this year in the United States. Last year,
Wow.
81,000. The year before that, 72,000. The year before that, 75,000. The year before that, 71,000. Do you see a trend there by any chance? Do either of you see a trend?
I do.
Okay, now.
For sure.
Okay, I've been a big talker. Now go back 25 years to the year 2000. 174,000 came in. You go back to 2005, 159,000. 2010, 110,000. 2015, 102,000. So you could see the trend goes down really sharply and then kind of a little bit starts to come back up.
What happened between 2005 and 2010, brother? I wonder.
It depends on how you look at the data.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the last 5 years, we're doing great. If you look at the last 25 years, we're way below where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Like way, way, way below where we were. So I think that does tell an important story. I think it tells a story of maybe we could say, and we probably need 5 more years of this to know, we have stopped the decline. That might be where we are.
I think we're pushing back against it good, but when we were joking about what happened between 2005 and 2010, wasn't that right around the time that the priest abuse scandal blew up?
Well, even going back to 2000, 2002 is the big year that's where the year it blew up.
Yeah.
So if you look at 2000, we got 174,000 people coming in that year, and then you go all the way to 2015. Just 15 years later, and we're down to 102,000 came in that year. So you don't think that 15 years of priest scandals had anything to do with that? Yeah, of course they did.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're exactly right.
Absolutely. It did enormous damage to the church, but you know what? I mean, like I tell people this all the time. I came into the church right around that time at the height of the priest abuse scandal, but I guess I was just looking at it differently. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's terrible. Even one case of that is terrible, but you look at like there's a lot there are what 1.5 billion Christians in the world.
Yeah, probably about.
And you think about
more
all
than that for Christians.
all the good. I want to say we're like 1.2 billion or something. Or
no,
for just Catholics.
I think we're almost 1.5 for Catholics. Let me see. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I just think that the Catholics out there have done a lot more good than bad, and I'm not saying that to minimize the
bad.
The bad, of course, like that should be rooted out. Absolutely, 100%. And
Right.
I think that also regular Catholics are eyes wide open now, and pushing back on this and saying, yeah, we need to treat this differently. There was also just a difference the way that particular not pedophilia, what is it, pederasty, the way that was looked at and dealt with, like in the 70s and prior to that, was just different.
The failures were. Yeah,
they were exacerbated by a
being
belief that you could just this could be
cured,
right?
Or
like,
get a little therapy and you'll be all right, Father.
Right? Or move them somewhere else and get them some therapy and everything will be okay. And it's like now they moved them around and they did the exact same thing and they kept moving them around thinking that was good advice.
But I think some of it was more venal than that. I think sometimes they were moved around just to protect the church. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was good intentions. I think it was bad intentions.
Oh, yeah.
1.4 billion Catholics is the high number, 2.6 billion Christians in the world. So those are pretty high numbers. I would say one other thing, though. I think the decline in those numbers, I would add in the terrorist attacks of 2001. And here's why. After the terrorist attacks of 2001, you are far too young to remember this, Emily.
I wasn't born.
There was a sense that religion is dangerous, and that was exploited by the new atheists. This idea that this is religion did this, and we need to we need to stamp out religion. And I think a lot of young people fell for that. I think the new atheists started using the social media way faster than we Christians did, particularly Catholics. And around the last 10 years, we caught up and surpassed them.
Yeah.
So our arguments are getting heard now in a way that they were not heard, and the really angry and basically juvenile arguments, this foot stomping, religion is bad arguments of the early 2000s were very effective.
Can I make a recommendation really quick to the people who may be listening to this?
Yes.
There's a fantastic book out there if you're interested in this particular subject about religious violence. There's a book called The Myth of Religious Violence by William Kavanaugh. It's a fantastic read.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a myth, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at the top 10 military killers in history, one of them is a religious figure.
Right.
And I don't want to name that person, but I would say Sneeko probably likes him.
Well, Sneeko comes back into the conversation.
That's called a callback.
Well, religion, national pride, those things are always like used to rally the troops, right?
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that the source of the conflict was over like some theological difference or something.
Yes, that's right.
It's always it's the same thing. Like it's always rich and powerful people trying to stay rich and powerful. That's at the root of every war.
In the middle of the 20th century, we had two really prominent religious conflicts. Israel and the Palestinians, Jews and Muslims, and in Ireland, Catholics and Protestants. And these were in the news every day for 30 years.
Right.
I think that gave people a kind of easy. It's always religion. It's religion that causes all these problems. But when you look at even the Catholic Protestant stuff, and I don't know about the Jewish Muslim stuff, but as much. But a lot of the Catholic Protestant stuff, it was less religion than it was. Than a really brutal imperial history that traumatized, left people profoundly traumatized.
Right, and I'm not saying
the IRA was not a religious organization.
Right,
they were criminals.
Yeah, and I mean there are. I suppose there. I'm sure there are instances where like the conflict was religious at its core. I mean, I think of like the Crusades or something. But
yes, right, yeah,
right. But the number of those compared to, I mean, like if you just look at all the wars that have ever happened over the last 2,000 years or whatever, like I mean, how many of those actually have to do with religion? I think very, very few.
Yes, I think it's so. What's the name of the book? The Myth of Religious
Violence? The
Myth
of Religious Violence by William Kavanaugh. You could probably find it on Amazon or something. It's an older book, but it's still really good.
And there's a tremendous amount of evidence of, at least for Christianity, the pacifying effects of Christianity. Wherever Christianity goes, human sacrifice stops. Child sacrifice stops. There's an increase in education wherever. I mean, this is just consider it all around the world.
Right.
Now, do evil things come when Christians come? Yes, because Christians are containers of a lot of evil. I mean, we don't say we come and we're perfect. I'm just saying that Christ himself brings, like if you consider, say, Northern Europe or England before the coming of the gospel to those places, and then after the coming of the gospel to those places, it's not the same at all.
No.
It's the amount of tribal violence, the amount of domestic violence, the amount of violence between nations is just not the same as it was before. So Christianity is good. I don't know if you agree with that, Emily. I know you're new to it, but Christianity is good, and it's good for people.
I 100% agree.
You do?
Yeah. I think that when you were speaking about kind of what fueled people's hesitancy maybe to go towards religion in the early 2000s, I would also add that like the terrorist attacks, the violence that we saw in religious circles, it kind of just fueled the atheist mindset of like, look, I don't need religion to be a moral person. In fact, look at how barbaric these people are acting because religion has darkened their mind and has made them stupid, in a sense. And so that just kind of fueled their arguments further. And obviously with like the internet becoming, more expanded and available for people, that just also fueled the accessibility they had towards, the new atheist movement and articles and stuff like that. So I would say that definitely contributed. But with the increase of social media now, people are able to reverse, like you said, they're able to reverse those myths and lies that they were taught from the new atheist movement. And you don't have to, like, if it wasn't for social media, I never would have known what the church fathers were. I didn't go to a religious school. And so it's like, how would I have heard of them besides maybe a history class, but they're not really mentioned in history class. And so at that rate, like I never would have known who the church fathers were if it wasn't for social media. So, and you can find readily, translated versions of their writings too, which is crazy because like you said, you'd have to go to a library to find that if they even had, them.
Oh my gosh, Emily, when I was working on one of the first projects I did here at Catholic Answers a long time ago was I worked on Jimmy's book, The Fathers Know Best. And I it's a collection of articles that were written for Catholic Answers magazine, but they wanted to compile them all into one book, which was a great idea. And but the problem is that a lot of the quotes came from the Jurgens 3-volume set.
Oh yeah.
And Jurgens translated that stuff himself, so his publisher owns that. It's like,
So
I can take a picture
that.
of the Mona Lisa and that picture's mine.
But you can't publish it.
No, I can publish the picture. I can't. So the Mona Lisa is in the public domain, right? I mean, you can't just go in. So I can take a picture of it. That picture belongs to me. Like you can't take my picture and just do whatever you want with it because the picture because the original picture is in the public domain. That photograph is mine.
Yeah.
So in the same way, it's like that with translations. But you would be amazed. I had to go looking for 1,000. There was 1,000 quotes that I had to look up. I found about 980 of them, but the rest of them were not available in English public domain translations. Like I couldn't find them anywhere. I was calling people.
Did you have to get them translated, or what did you do?
No, we just left those ones out. So hopefully we can do like a second edition someday and reintroduce those quotes. That would be awesome. But I had all kinds of people. Like I was calling like Mike Aquilina.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know where I could find these? I don't even know if he'd remember that. It was so long ago. I'm like, I'm just lowly, guy at Catholic Answers. I'm like, I'm looking for these quotes. Can you help me? Yeah, but now it's like you could just like pop one of those into AI and have it translated for you. Probably get it pretty close.
Right.
Yeah.
If I may do two things before we have to go today. One, I'm looking on here and I see someone who seems to be sad that we don't have Jeff Cam today, saying there's no Jeff Cam today. And then I realize it's Jeff. Jeff Anderson is posting there's no Jeff Cam today.
Oh my gosh.
He's feeling sorry for himself. I think he's answering a question. I was like, "Oh, who's this that misses Jeff Cam?" Oh, it's Jeff. Of course, he misses Jeff Cam.
Jeff Cam. Jeff, we love you, man.
Jeff's. The second thing is, Emily, I think I did you wrong. You had something that you wanted to talk about. You had something you want to talk about, and I used almost up the. I forgot, Emily. I apologize.
So It's fine. It's very brief, but it actually ties into what we've been talking about, so I think it'll be a good ender. So you mentioned my Fox News appearance. Well, I almost made an appearance on NBC News this past weekend. So I'm sitting on the couch, and this is after Fox News had reached out to me to be on again for some sort of Easter segment, and then they canceled, which I figured because the news varies and changes. But then like a few hours later, I get an email that's like the subject header is like urgent NBC News interview or something. And it's like, hey, they're like, hey, can you do a Zoom interview within the next 3 hours? And I'm like, sure. And they wanted to talk about Catholic conversions and me being a Catholic convert or something. So I'm just to preface, I don't watch the news. I don't know anything about the news. I don't know anything about the news outlets and like where they lean politically. So I had no idea that NBC News was more liberal. In fact, when I was interviewing with Fox, I knew obviously Fox is conservative, but I didn't know if they were like Catholic or if they were Protestant. So I was kind of using veiled language when I was being asked on Fox why I was Catholic, a few months back. But now, and so for NBC, I was like, I'm not going to use veiled language anymore. Like, I'm just going to give it to them straight up.
Yeah.
They're asking me about why I'm Catholic. So I have no idea that they're pretty liberal. Actually, the most liberal news outlet, according to my husband. I asked him after the fact because I go in thinking, oh, this is going to be, like a simple, easy interview. They're going to ask me a couple questions. They didn't give me any questions in advance, so I have no idea what I'm walking into. But I assume, they reached out to me, so it'll be nice and smooth. So I go in there, and the opening question is like, "What's your story? Tell us your story." Which, by the way, was very ambiguous. I didn't know what story they were referring to because obviously, like, I had a past in Christianity before I became Catholic. So I kind of just start telling them, I converted to the Christian faith when I was a teenager, and Jesus was the fulfillment of everything I was searching for, and I love Jesus. Basically, I'm telling these people that, and they're like, okay. And then they're like asking me, so
Okay.
why Catholic? And they like don't know. She didn't know the difference between Catholics and Protestants. So she's like, why Catholic and not Christian or something? Or why did you embrace Catholicism and go away from your Christianity? And so I'm confused now because I'm like, wait, why are they asking me this? But okay, I'll give them the difference. I'll explain it to them. And so I'm doing that. And they're asking me, why the Catholic Church? And I'm like, history. Like, I looked at the writings of the early church fathers, and it became really apparent to me that the beliefs that they were following were not Protestant, were not Eastern Orthodox, but were Catholic. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, so you converted because of history. And I was like, yeah. Like the church, like the early church history. And she's like, the Catholic Church has a pretty, specific type of history, basically. And I was like, so taken aback. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, why am I being pushed back against? I thought you wanted to know about my conversion. Now I'm defending the Catholic faith in front of you. So then I respond, well, any institution that's thousands of years old is going to have a history to it, but the measure of the truth of a belief should not be on how well the imperfect people inside of it adhere to that belief, but what the beliefs itself teach. Right. And so she just was like, okay. And then they just like continued with like I was there for like 10 minutes, and I almost appeared because they didn't run with my segment, which after the fact and after I figured out they were more liberal leaning, I was like, I'm not surprised they didn't run with my segment because I'm sitting there preaching to them about Jesus, not realizing she says, thanks for coming, Emily. And I say, thank you, God bless. And they both go silent, and I just exit off the Zoom call.
Wow. I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. Because
it's crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? Like a lamb to the slaughter, you went. And I think that's good, not bad. I think that's good, not bad. Like, because what if you had known and you had tried to turn it into a kind of, I'll I don't know, maybe temper it this way or that way. And sometimes if we temper it for our audience, it's completely wrong and inauthentic. They made the wrong choice not to have you on there. But I think that's great what you did. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very crazy.
So why are you
I
Catholic
was
and not Christian? Let me just, I'll do the interview with you now. Emily, why are you Catholic and not Christian?
All Catholics are Christian, but not all Christians are Catholic.
What?
So
At
some
NBC
Christians
News,
have
we were
become
completely
misguided.
unaware of this. Completely unaware.
Literally.
I'm going to get some fact checkers on this.
They probably were unaware.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
They were.
How about we praise Jesus on this Tuesday? I wanted to say Monday, but this Tuesday of Easter. Why don't we give glory to God before we go?
That sounds
Does that sound all right?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
Father in heaven, thank you for the gift of your son, Jesus. Jesus, thank you for the gift of your life on our behalf. Praise the Lord. He is risen from the dead. Glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. World without end. Amen.
Amen. See you in Texas, Emily.
Peace.
Yes, bye.
Don't let me hear about you converting to Christianity. Do not let me hear about that.